Hey y'all, I'm Daniel and this is Deacon Outdoors. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I was off a little bit taking care of a couple projects, but I'm back and I have a new background. In my workshop, this is where I've always worked on my guns and everything, reloaded and stuff like that. So I wanted to get back in here and just be in my spot. So couple things I got today to go over. Don't have a whole lot of new footage, but one thing I do have is I got my reloader stand built. Um, I wanted to, the last one I had permanently mounted to my workbench, and I didn't want to do that this time because I wanted the versatility of having my entire workbench to work on stuff. So I built a um, stand out of some plywood, and I can clamp it down with some C-clamps and move it out of the way, set it on the floor just to get it out of the way. But we remodeled our kitchen here this past year, so I kept the old countertops, and it really makes a good workbench top. So um, I was able to get that put in here this winter. So with that, like I said, I got everything mounted. I got my dies in for the press. I ended up ordering the Lee 3-die set that comes with the quick change sleeves. Makes it a whole lot easier and quicker to change your dies out. You just do a little simple turn that pops out, drop your new one back in, give it just a little bit, and I bet it ain't even an eighth of a turn and it's locked, ready to go. But the set comes with the standard uh, full-length resized D-prime die, the bullet seating die, and the crimp die, which I never have used a crimp on what I load, but that's just my personal preference. I've never had a problem, but um, it also comes with a powder scoop and a shell holder for the ram on the press. Um, you can, and I will probably end up going with one of their micrometer dies for the seating die, just because I want to play around with some more stuff with reloading than what I used to. And I'll talk about that in a minute. But as far as everything I've got set up to go, I've got Hodgdon H4350 powder. I read a lot of people reload 6.5 Creedmoor with that powder. I've always used Hodgdon products. I used to, when I loaded my 223 and my 7 mag and stuff, I used um, Benchmark and Varget and CFE 223 for my 223 bolt action I used to have. Hybrid 100V I used for 7mm and 300 Win Mag. I used to use, a long time ago, I reloaded for shotguns, and I used the, I believe it was Alliant red dot and green dot powders for that. I did use some Hodgdon clays. That's whenever I switched over to start using strictly Hodgdon powder. But I got a pound of that picked up to start. And I got my CCI primers back here, large rifle primers. Actually, they're starting to come back around and being more readily available. I've noticed my local academy has had large rifle primers. They're not as cheap as they used to be, is the only thing. They've just about tripled in price. Used to you get 100 primers for $3.99. Now they're like $8.99 or $9.99 per sleeve, just for one 100 pack sleeve. So the prices definitely went up on them, but it is what it is. Now, if you buy bulk, I have been seeing places online that have 1,000 count blocks of primers that are about what I gave for 500. So they are out there if you're willing to pay the shipping. Another thing, I got my bullets. So you remember I talked about my 6.5 like the Hornady Black 140 grain boat tail hollow point. I decided, since that was the tightest group with factory ammo, that I was going to go with 140 grain for reloads, but I switched over to the ELD match bullets. And the reason I did that was I knew I wanted to shoot the ELDs just because of the BC rating on them. It's a lot higher than the boat tail hollow point. So it's, you know, if I continue to do what I'm working on doing with shooting some PRS and NRL matches, I need every advantage I can get out of my equipment. So that's going to be the best bullet for what I plan on doing. So now that I've got everything, I've got my beam scale, which I kind of went over with you. And once I get started reloading, I did buy a digital so I can show you how accurate that beam scale really is, and have some footage of that whenever I get started. The one thing that I do not have, and it was for a very good reason that I didn't purchase one, is a vibratory tumbler. Now, I used to use one whenever I loaded the first time, and it was a Frankford Arsenal, and it didn't have any problems with it at all. The only thing about those is the run times to get your brass where you want it, and then depending on if you forget and resize and deprime all your brass before you throw it in the tumbler, you got to dig the media out of the primer pocket, things like that. Well, I used that the whole time I was loading. Well, a lot more people I've been noticing are going with liquid for cleaning their brass. Now, people use the ultrasonic cleaners, but I'm a DIY guy. I love doing DIY stuff. And when it comes to things that I can use DIY, I want to. So I've been doing some research on different solutions that people are using. And one of them I've been seeing quite a bit of is the Dawn Platinum, the lemon juice and hot water mixture. And I've seen different videos where people have built a bucket tumbler with a cordless drill and two 1 gallon buckets where they was able to slide one in and let it run to agitate it with stainless steel media. I've seen other videos where the guy just put his brass in a tub of the mixture and sloshed it around with his hands for a little bit, then let it soak for a little while, and then agitated it and sloshed it around with his hands again, and then kind of dried it off. And it did a pretty good job. So that's the one thing I've got to get set up, is which way I want to go with it. And that's where I wanted to get this out there. If you all have a different method that you've seen or that you use besides the Dawn and lemon juice, drop me a comment and let me know what you're using or what you've seen others use. I'm going to start with the Dawn and lemon juice just so I can get started loading, because I haven't pulled the lever on this yet, and I'm getting very anxious to get some rounds loaded so I can start getting my load developed for this rifle. Now, aside from that, I am planning on doing some more research and learning about the overall length of the load. And the reason I bring that up is if you reload, you hear people talk about the jump. And for those of you that don't reload, the jump is the distance from the ogive of the bullet, which, if you don't know what the ogive is, it's this part of the bullet right in here. And the jump is the distance from where the bullet contacts the lands of the chamber. So people will either lengthen that jump or shorten the jump and work on their load development for that, just to squeeze every little fraction of accuracy out of their ammunition. Now, a lot of people that just go out and shoot, it's not going to make that much of a difference whether you're doing the jump or not. Originally, when I loaded, all I did was I loaded to the recommended overall length and left it at that because I didn't need it. And I did get really good groupings at 100 yards. And with my 223, I was able to bang steel at 650 yards relatively easy. But as far as a grouping at long range, I didn't have it, but I wasn't trying to group at distance. So the reason I want to do that is if I go to some of these PRS matches and everything, I want to make sure that my equipment is as accurate as it can be, and then it's up to me to make it do what it's capable of. So I'm going to play around with that a little bit after I load develop and find a sweet spot, and see if I can work on that. It may not make a difference. It might. I don't know. We'll see as we go, because I'll video all of that, and we'll just learn it together. But I'm actually looking forward to doing that to see how much that actually does change it. I've read a lot of other forums where people get them where they're actually jammed into the rifling. Some will bring it back 10 thousandths or 20 thousandths from the lands. It's just fine tuning it to that degree. We'll see if it makes a difference with what I've got. Aside from that, I'm pretty well ready to go with loading. Like I said, if y'all have some ideas on cleaner for the brass, let me know and I'll give it a shot. But like I said, I'm going to go ahead and start with what I got just because I want to get going. So I'll read your comments as we go.